You really put a lot of sparkle on this one, huh? Jared sneered, flipping through the first draft of my compliance framework like it was a damn Cheesecake Factory menu. Looks like something compliance Barbie would hand out after pillates. I smiled. The kind of smile you flash when you're 2 seconds from throat punching someone but HR still exists. 6 months. 6 soul-draining, caffeine-fueled months building a risk and governance framework so tight it could double as a chastity belt. I'd poured through SEC filings, dissected the client's audit history, and even ran simulations using their outdated API logs because, surprise, surprise, no one else knew how to do it. But sure, Jared, newly imported from some SAW startup, where compliance meant making sure the office cold brew wasn't expired, decided it was too text-heavy. I wish this was one of those stories where I found redemption in a team-building retreat or some shit. It's not. Jared wasn't just out of his depth, he was digging. If you're still listening and nodding along like, yup, I know that guy, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button and toss us a like. Seriously, 97% of y'all ghost us after binging stories like it's Netflix, and this team? We run on caffeine, spite, and your tiny acts of support. It means the world, thanks. Anyway, back to this grease fire of a promotion parade. Jared wasn't hired for his brain, he was hired for his energy. Translation: he wore tight slacks and said things like let's vibe check this deck in meetings. The man once suggested we swap our onboarding policy for a meme slideshow. When I reminded him that we're contractually liable for data mishandling, he chuckled and said, legal's just there to say no slower. Every week, I updated the compliance playbook, tightening our posture around vendor audits, third-party risk, and zero-trust architecture. Every week, Jared found new ways to defecate on it while trying to replace acronyms with emojis. He wanted it fun. The client, and $80M deal on the table, had explicitly requested a traditional GRC package that would pass muster with both their board and their paranoid-ass lawyers. But Jared said, don't know what they want. Let's give them what they need, a story. A story. Sir, this isn't Pixar. It's financial liability wrapped in legal jargon. It's work. But sure enough, after 2 months of Jared workshopping my slides, I got a calendar invite, final pitch full deck review with CEO. The invite had one comment, keep it snappy. 15 slides max. Add vibe. That night, I cracked open a Cabernet I'd been saving since the Capitol riot and got to work. I built 2 versions of the deck, his stripped-down Sparkle Puke version and mine, the real one. Buttoned up, no nonsense. The one the client's chief risk officer actually asked for in our back channel call. I don't care what Jared told people, she wanted frameworks, not fables. The morning of the pitch, I showed up early, wore navy, no frills, just facts. Jared showed up late with cold brew and a dumbass grin like he was walking into a startup's talent show. He gave me a wink and whispered, let's razzle-dazzle them. I could already feel the ulcer blooming. CEO Martin, always calm, always watching, slid into the call 5 minutes early. He nodded at me. He didn't look at Jared. I clocked it. Client team joins, a wall of stoic faces. Their engineer, Priya, gave the smallest nod when she saw my name on the intro slide. We'd been swapping risk scenarios for weeks. She knew what was coming. She was the only reason I still had hoped this wasn't going to be a slaughterhouse. Jared kicked it off with a joke, something about compliance being the new sexy. I felt my soul leave my body, then my slides came up. My slides. For about 90 seconds, I explained our tiered response model for data breach protocols. Modular, scalable, tested under multiple failure conditions. Dead silence. Priya's head tilted slightly. She leaned in. That's when Jared barked, all right, enough PowerPoint fluff. Let's get to the meat. I stopped mid-sentence. My hand twitched on the mouse. Priya froze, and in that thick pause where I swear even the Zoom icons looked uncomfortable, I caught it out of the corner of my eye. CEO Martin, expression unchanged, quietly typing in Slack. His fingers were flying. He didn't say a word, but he turned his laptop screen slightly toward Jared. Just enough. My stomach flipped. I didn't know it yet, but the first domino had just dropped. There's a specific kind of silence that hits after someone detonates their own career in a Zoom call. It's not shock. It's not awkwardness. It's clinical. Like the whole room is taking collective inventory of a carcass. Everyone's just waiting to see who's gonna say, yup, he's dead. That's the silence that followed Jared's little outburst. Enough PowerPoint fluff, he'd said, chuckling like a guy who still thought sarcasm counted as leadership. Let's get to the real stuff. And just like that, my slide, the one outlining our adaptive risk containment model with mapped regulatory touchpoints, evaporated from the screen, replaced by a half-ass graphic Jared whipped up in Canva. What he didn't realize in all his glory was that I hadn't just built that framework because I liked compliance. I built it because Priya, the client's lead systems engineer, asked for it. Specifically, she'd messaged me weeks earlier. Our last vendor fumbled the SOC2 renewal because their team didn't have documented protocols. If your deck can show real governance layers, our execs will eat it up. She said real governance layers, not Jared's diagram of 3 little cartoon shields labeled trust, security, and vibes, so I sat there. In front of 15 faces, most muted. A few blinking, and then came the kill shot. That's our compliance framework, Priya said. Her voice was flat, deadly. The silence that followed was the sound of Jared's ego crapping itself. Excuse me, he managed, half laughing. Priya didn't blink. Slide 12. The data risk escalation ladder. That's the framework our legal and InfoSec teams signed off on. I emailed last week to confirm its inclusion. I assumed this meeting was to validate it. Ever watch someone realize they've just insulted the person holding their lifeline? Jared's face twitched. Eyes darted. His cursor danced on the screen like it was trying to find a trapdoor. Oh, that part. I didn't realize. Yeah, well, I mean, we've got it all integrated. I was just trying to mute him, said one of the client's program managers. Quietly, not even cruel, just tired. And that's when I saw it, CEO Martin, cool as a freezer full of corpses, typing something rapid fire into Slack. His hands didn't hesitate, his face didn't twitch. But he rotated his screen again, just slightly, and Jared, poor dumb Jared, glanced at it and visibly recoiled like he'd seen a subpoena. He tried to recover. Look, the point is, we're all on the same page. The team's been grinding to ensure alignment. I said nothing. I didn't need to say anything. The silence had shifted now, not awkward, not deadly, strategic. The client team was watching him dance, watching me sit still, and Martin just watched both of us. I minimized the Zoom window and opened my notes app. List of infractions: Jared L. Public dismissal of client-requested compliance structure. Unilateral slide removal. Factual misrepresentation of framework authorship. Derogatory language, compliance Barbie. Logged W/timestamp. Slack thread backup in Notion copy pending to personal drive. I copied it over to a private folder titled Contingency. Jared stumbled through his remaining slides like a deer tap dancing in traffic. He dropped buzzwords like candy, synergy, real-time trust, governance light. What even is that? He ended with a call to action so vague it could have doubled as a horoscope. When the call finally ended, the only words from the client were, "We'll review and circle back." Translation: they were going to dissect every frame like it was the Zapruder film. Jared slumped back in his chair, running a hand through his knockoff coif. That went well, right? I just smiled. And that was the moment I stopped trying to salvage anything. This wasn't a salvage operation anymore. This was going to be surgical. 2 days later, Jared booked a quick sync on the calendar titled Post-Pitch Debrief Team Kudos plus Action Items. The invite had confetti emojis in the subject line. He brought donuts. If that doesn't scream I'm covering my ass, I don't know what does. He opened the call with that fake cheerful tone you use when you've already decided what the story is and you're just waiting for everyone else to fall in line. I just want to start by saying amazing work, team, he gushed, biting into a maple bar like a man who thinks chewing loudly equals leadership. Couldn't have done it without everyone pulling together. And shout out to Emily here for, doing the heavy lifting on the framework. We all brought it across the finish line. Heavy lifting? Sir, I built the damn road. I said nothing. Just nodded like a bobblehead on Ambien. I knew better than to challenge the spin. Let the man believe he was rewriting history. He didn't realize I'd already backed up the original manuscript. Because while Jared was playing cheerleader in front of the team, he was doing something else behind the scenes. Legal pinged me 20 minutes after the call. Subject line, updated compliance framework received, please confirm alignment. I clicked the attachment. My stomach dropped. It was my framework, sort of. The structure was intact, but all the legal qualifiers were stripped. Gone were the detailed response scenarios, replaced by vague principles of trust. No citations, no escalation logic, no mapped controls. It was like someone took a surgery manual and replaced every diagram with a smiley face. It wasn't a framework. It was a goddamn LinkedIn post in PowerPoint form. I fired up version control, pulled timestamps, labeled his changes, every removal, every euphemism. I cross-checked against the document I delivered to legal just 1 week earlier, the one with cross-links to federal regulatory clauses and the client's RFP language. I didn't get angry. No, I got precise. New folder, legal gutted v Jared backed up to encrypted cloud, flash drive, and yes, even printed. Because when you've seen this movie before, you learn to pack your own parachute. Then I sent one email. Just one. Hi Clara, not sure where this version originated, but I'm happy to provide the most recent signed-off draft from internal review, with source commentary and linked standards per client request. Emily, no drama, no CCs, just a whisper of ice in my tone. 30 minutes later, Clara from legal responded, "Thank you, please send that version ASAP. This one lacks critical components." Translation: what the hell is this nonsense Jared just gave us? I clicked send. Attached everything. No commentary, no complaints, just the facts. Later that night, while I was sipping boxed red wine and rage scrolling through Reddit, my phone buzzed with a LinkedIn message request. It was Erin, the client's analyst. We'd spoken once briefly during a prep call. She struck me as sharp, cautious, someone who didn't say things unless they'd been triple-checked first. "Hey, just wanted to say your framework was the first one that actually made sense to our internal team. Seriously, thanks for finally putting it in plain English." I stared at the message for a long time. It wasn't much. But in the war zone that was this project, it felt like a warm blanket tossed into a trench. I replied, appreciate it. Let me know if you need anything clarified. What I meant was, you're not crazy. I see it too, and I'm still in this fight. The next morning, Jared strutted into the office with a cold brew in hand and that smug everything's fine face. Didn't know about the legal email. He didn't know about Aaron's message. He didn't know that every time he hit save on one of his butchered docs, a backup went straight to a private, version-logged vault. He thought he'd won the narrative. He didn't realize I was already building the ending. Friday morning, 8:12 a.m. The office was still half asleep and smelled like burnt K-cups and desperation. I was standing by the ancient espresso machine, burning my tongue on something labeled Sumatra Bold, when Martin, our CEO, appeared out of nowhere like a corporate ghost in all birds. He didn't say good morning. He didn't ask how the pitch went. He just stood next to me in silence for a beat, then muttered, it's always the unforced errors that cost millions. He didn't look at me, just stared into his coffee like it owed him money. I didn't respond, not right away, because that wasn't just a passing comment, that was a tell. Martin was a poker player, not the flashy kind. The quiet one who folds twice as often as he bets and somehow still walks away with the pot. He never came out swinging. He waited, observed, documented. He knew, not just about the framework fiasco, not just about Jared's circus act in the pitch. He knew the whole damn iceberg beneath it, the altered documentation, the false attributions, version swap that almost got us in legal hot water. And like any good CEO, he wasn't going to react until the risk of not acting outweighed the mess of getting involved. Still, the air was thick with implication. So I took a small sip and said, clean handoffs prevent sloppiness. No names, no accusations, just matching his vibe code to code. He gave the faintest nod, a twitch in the corner of his mouth, then walked away, nothing dramatic. But my pulse was thumping in my ears. He knew he was watching, but he wasn't ready to pull the trigger, which meant I had time to build the safety net. Back at my desk, I opened Notion and created a new page titled Client Engagement Risk Notes Private. I wasn't documenting emotions. I was building a forensic timeline. Jan 17 initial framework drafted, shared W/legal, V1.2. Jan 23 feedback from client legal team confirms alignment. Feb 3 Jared edits framework V1.5, removes response tiers no approval chain. Feb 5 client flags concern control logic inconsistency. Feb 6 CEO Slack MSG logged, client call 10:03 a.m. Feb 8 Jared submits alt version to legal without attribution email archived. I added screenshots, Slack timestamps, email headers. I even recorded a screencast of the diff comparison between my original version and Jared's Frankenstein edit. Not because I was paranoid, but because I was tired of being gaslit. If the dam broke, I wasn't going to raise my voice. I was going to point to the receipts and let them scream for me. That afternoon, Jared popped into our shared Slack channel with his usual delusion. Just reviewed our compliance doc again. Think we can shave down the legalese even more? No one reads the fine print, right? Lol. I took a deep breath, switched to DM and typed, the fine print is the contract. Let me know if you need help understanding why it's there. No emoji, no lol, just a thread that would age like poison in sunlight. He didn't reply, but I saw the little typing. Bubble flicker, then vanish by 5 p.m. I had every thread that mattered tagged, exported, and mirrored. Not because I was planning to go nuclear, but because now I was playing the long game. Martin had seen the crack. I was going to show him the fault line. The email hit everyone's inboxes at 8:41 a.m. sharp. Subject line, Project Horizon client follow-up pending body was short. Brutal. We're temporarily pausing further engagement while we review internal documentation alignment. Please confirm final compliance deliverables by EOW. Aaron S., Risk Analyst, Hanover Group. There it was, not we have questions, not let's clarify a few points, just pause, because the client, the $80 million career-making client, had caught the scent of bullshit, and they were circling back to find the source. Within 3 minutes, Jared stormed past my desk like a man on fire, reeking of stress, sweat, and overpriced cologne. Slammed into the glass huddle room and started pinging half the company. At 8:54 a.m., I was summoned. The invite came from the COO's assistant. Urgent. Horizon blocker review Jared, Emily, Martin, COO, the kind of meeting that makes your stomach cold. I walked in last. Jared was already standing, pacing like a televangelist who'd misplaced the Holy Spirit. The coup, grim-faced. Martin, leaning back in his chair, fingers steepled, unreadable as ever. All right, Jared began, voice already defensive. This delay's coming from some, frankly, misunderstandings on the client's end. We presented a unified framework, but I think certain elements may have been overcomplicated by internal teams. Internal teams, that's what I was now. The COO raised an eyebrow. Which elements? Jared flicked his iPad open. Mainly the response matrix and some of the incident escalation flow. Look, we tried to streamline it for the client's sake. Less jargon, more action. He glanced at me like he expected backup. I didn't even blink. Martin finally spoke. You said this version was aligned with what the client reviewed in December. Jared nodded too fast. Yeah, I mean, it's 95% the same. We just cleaned it up a bit, made it tighter. Martin's gaze shifted to me. Emily, I didn't raise my voice, didn't roll my eyes, didn't even sigh. I pulled out my laptop, opened Notion, and slid it across the table. Version 1.2, I said. Client approved. Legal reviewed. Timestamps included. Red lines show Jared's edits. You'll see control measures removed and multiple obligations under GDPR, CCPA, and NIDV stripped out without notation. Silence. I clicked to the next tab. Here's Aaron's confirmation of alignment from January. And here's the version that went to the client last week. Jared's face drained like someone yanked the power cord. I didn't strip anything, just optimized the did legal approve those changes? Martin asked, calm as ever. Jared opened his mouth, nothing came out. COO turned to Martin. Should we reach out to the client to clarify? Martin shook his head slowly. Let's not give them whiplash. We'll rebook the call internally for Friday. Jared, you and Emily work together to make sure we're presenting a unified doc this time. Full transparency. Understood, Jared swallowed. Yes, of course, I nodded. Copy that. But inside, I was ice. I could feel the scales starting to shift. The CEO had just bought time, not for Jared, for me. I exited the room while Jared tried to save face, mumbling something about framework narrative cohesion. Back at my desk, I made one update to the Notion doc. Feb 14 client pauses deal. Jared blamed internal miscommunication in front of COO. Version 1.2 verified on record. Martin present. And then, just for myself, I added a tag, #implosion imminent. It was 9:42 p.m. when the Zoom ping came in. No calendar invite, no Slack heads up. Just a straight email from Aaron at Hanover Group. Quick clarification compliance docs with a link. No CCs, just me. I clicked it, heart thudding like it knew something I didn't. 4 faces popped up. Aaron. Man in a charcoal blazer named Victor, legal counsel, according to the nameplate. Another woman, Kara, from Enterprise Risk. And a fourth I didn't recognize who looked like he ate NDAs for breakfast. Aaron nodded once. Thanks for joining, Emily. We wanted to speak privately, not with your team, not with Jared, not your CEO, just me. Of course, I said, keeping my tone even, eyes calm, fingers frozen over my trackpad. Victor leaned in slightly, as though this were a deposition and I was either a star witness or the next casualty. We'll be blunt. We've been comparing versions of your compliance framework. The version we approved internally is not the version your company sent us last week. Kara chimed in. The one we greenlit had jurisdiction-specific escalation paths, mapped controls, and vendor logic flags. The one Jared sent? She gave a tight smile. It had inspirational quotes in the margins. I winced, not because I was surprised, but because I remembered the quote. Trust is earned in pixels, not promises. Jared thought it sounded profound. It sounded like an app launch. Aaron took over again. Victor's team reviewed both. Their conclusion is unanimous. Your original submission is the reason we were ready to sign. Silence, the good kind. The board flagged the inconsistency, Victor added. Hit pause because we weren't sure if this was sloppiness or something worse. I exhaled slowly. Understood. I can confirm the version you're referencing was approved by our internal legal team and matches our security posture. I still have full documentation and audit trail, including legal's red lines and final stamp. Aaron nodded again, slower this time. We're willing to proceed, she said, on one condition. Your version is reinstated and locked for the contract. No substitutions, no edits. My throat was dry. I wanted to say yes. Hell, I wanted to scream yes, but something held me, not fear, precision. I'll make it available tonight, I said, but there's one request I have. 4 pairs of eyes narrowed slightly. I want CEO sign-off, directly, on the record. Victor blinked. Aaron leaned back. Kara arched a brow. If we're moving forward, I continued, then I want this framework attached to the final contract. With Martin's name on the signature page. No intermediaries, no rerouting through Jared. I watched their expressions shift, not surprise, not pushback. Respect. Victor nodded first. Reasonable. Kara added, smart. Aaron's mouth twitched in what might have been the first honest smile I'd seen all quarter. We'll reach out to Martin tomorrow morning and request his direct acknowledgement before we reinitiate final steps. I nodded once, professional to the end. But inside, fireworks, not the kind that explode. The kind that burn. This wasn't a win, not yet, but it was leverage, pure cold leverage. And I had just slid it onto the table without even raising my voice. After the call ended, I sat in the dark, laptop screen casting a pale glow across my kitchen table. I opened a new note in Notion. Feb 19 client confirms framework equals deal breaker. Private call. Client demands reinstatement of original version. Agreed pending CEO signature. And just beneath it, I added a new header. Endgame, begin. It happened at 7:16 a.m. on a Tuesday, the kind of hour when the office is just flickering to life. Inboxes are groaning, and no one's fully caffeinated enough to recognize sabotage when it bites them in the ass. I just logged in, planning to clean up the final version of the compliance framework before our internal exec call when I saw it, 404 repository not found. I blinked, refreshed, tried a direct link. Gone, my compliance repo, my documentation, my framework. 6 months of risk modeling, audit mapping, and cross-jurisdictional control matrices gone from the shared workspace. For a solid 2 seconds, my brain froze. Not panic, just pause. Then came the Slack ping from Jared. The kind of casual, weaponized message that should be framed in a museum labeled passive-aggressive cowardice, 2025. Hey, just a heads up, I cleaned out some of the outdated stuff in the shared drive. Think I accidentally nuked the old compliance repo lol. Let me know if you need anything from it. Should be backed up somewhere, right? No apology, no accountability. Just a thumbs up emoji like he'd done me a favor. I didn't reply, I just smiled. Because Jared, in all his brilliance, forgot one thing: I never trusted him with my only copy. In another tab, I opened my private Git mirror, the one I'd set up back in January when he started tinkering with versions like a toddler with a chainsaw. Every commit logged, every change documented, every red line backed by timestamp metadata. I clicked Restore to Workspace. It took 47 seconds. Then I exported the commit history and attached the repo diff logs, showing precisely what Jared had deleted: sections tied to GDPR Article 30, breach response timelines, vendor vetting logic, and the client-specific risk ladder. And then I opened a new email. To myself BCC, Martin, CEO, Amara, Client Liaison, Hanover Group, Rahul, CTO, Subject, Restored Compliance Framework, full version history attached body. Please see the re-uploaded documentation. The previous version appears to have been removed in error. Full commit history and legal annotations are enclosed. Let me know if anything further is needed. I didn't explain. I didn't accuse. The logs were the accusation. After I hit send, I returned to Slack and dropped one message in the hash internal compliance channel where Jared and the rest of his disciples lurked. Just 3 words: see attached history. No smiley, no emoji, just a live grenade rolled into the center of the room. 10 minutes later, I saw the typing bubble from Jared. Then it vanished. Then came a new message. Hey, sorry if I deleted something important, just trying to clean up. Didn't realize that repo was still active. Didn't realize you scheduled it for deletion. You marked it deprecated. You slapped a tag on it that said superseded by updated flow. I had screenshots, logs, audit trails, but I didn't respond because this wasn't about him anymore. This was about positioning. Within the hour, Rahul, our CTO, replied to my BCC with a simple "Thanks, Emily," confirming repo access, logs reviewed, and from Martin, nothing, just a silent read receipt that told me everything. They were watching, clocking each move, cataloging every action, every deletion, every little tell, and I had just turned the lights on. The subject line was surgical. Follow-up request, audit observation Hanover Group. It landed in Martin's inbox at 6:38 a.m. and triggered a silent fire drill across the C-suite. By 7:12 a.m., an impromptu demo call was scheduled for noon. Client-side leads, their internal audit head, our full exec team, and of course Jared. There were no emojis in the invite. No quick sync tag, no donuts this time, just the sterile, clipped tone of corporate dread. I wasn't listed as a required speaker, just tagged optional FYI, Martin's way of saying stay quiet, watch everything. Perfect. At 11:59, I logged in with my camera off and mic muted. The grid filled slowly, client side sharp as ever, suits and steely eyes. Audit lead dead center, a man named Lowell with the kind of voice that probably made interns cry during onboarding. Jared joined late. Of course he did. Hair disheveled, collar wrinkled, smile a little too big, like he could charm his way through a landmine field. Martin opened the call with a tone so smooth it barely registered as human. Thanks for making time today, everyone. Aaron flagged an inconsistency in the governance model. He thought it'd be best to walk through it live. Translation: we know you caught the lie. Now we're letting it bleed out in front of the room. Lowell wasted zero time, no pleasantries, no throat clearing. Page 4 of the latest compliance document, your revised escalation flow removes jurisdictional flags. That contradicts your earlier version, which explicitly referenced the client's US, EU data boundary risk. He flipped a page. This change, who authored it? Silence, then Jared, clearing his throat. Well, the original draft came from our governance lead, Emily, but I did some revisions to streamline things. Legal was in the loop, line number 1. Legal had flagged his edits and never approved them. Lowell didn't react. Did you test this revision against our breach protocol scenarios? Jared chuckled, actually chuckled, and said, we focused more on narrative clarity. I figured we'd clarify those edge cases post-sign-off. Line number 2, compliance doesn't have edge cases, it has liabilities. Martin didn't move, didn't flinch. He just slowly leaned back in his chair and let Jared speak. Aaron finally spoke. Jared, did you know that removing that flag voids your SOC2 alignment in 2 verticals? Jared blinked. Wait, voids? Yep, said Lowell. That framework, as edited, ails baseline control maturity for third-party access. Which means if you deployed it, we'd fail our internal audit. Which means no deal. Silence. Dead, sterile silence. I stared at my screen, mute icon glowing red, heart rate steady. Then Martin spoke, voice so flat it might have been pre-recorded. We'll be reverting to the original framework, effective immediately. Jared, any objections? Jared started to stammer something. I mean, if Emily's version is. Martin cut him off. No, not if, it is. The client confirmed it. Legal confirmed it. The only variable here was your edit, then he did it, the smallest move. Martin reached forward, tapped his trackpad, and turned his laptop slightly, just like he had in the pitch meeting. And though I couldn't see the Slack message, I knew, everyone knew, because Jared's face collapsed in on itself. The grin disappeared, the pupils widened. He'd seen what was written. He knew who was on the thread, he was watching the trap close. The client didn't gloat. Lowell just nodded once. We're good to proceed once that version is reinstated. Aaron followed, assuming your governance lead is still part of the project, of course. Still mute, still dark, I just sat there, watching. And somewhere inside me, the flicker of rage that had lived for months finally turned to flame. Jared was already sweating before the second slide. Tried to kick things off with one of his just vibing intros, but nobody cared. The client didn't smile. The CTO didn't look up. Martin, seated to Jared's left, kept that polite corpse smile locked in place while he casually scrolled on his laptop like he was reading stock tickers. Then Aaron spoke. Before we continue, she said, voice calm but icy, we just want clarification on one point. She shared her screen. Slide 7. The compliance response matrix, Jared's edited version. The one he'd pushed after gutting mine. Aaron pointed to a box labeled low-risk vendor escalation. This states that vendor incidents under a certain threshold don't require immediate flagging to our internal data team. Jared leaned forward, doing that thing where he tried to explain with his hands. Right? What we're saying here is that if it's a minor event, like an expired SSL cert, doesn't trigger a full audit. That's when Priya, the lead engineer, cut in. Except your framework also claims to support ISO 27001 Annex A.16, which requires flagging all third-party security events, regardless of perceived impact. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Everyone turned. Priya continued, so which is it? Are you ISO aligned, or are you selectively ignoring the standard when it's inconvenient? Jared opened his mouth. Martin raised one hand. Priya didn't stop. I'll clarify our position for the record. If we see conflicting logic in a compliance framework, we assume the most lenient rule will be applied in practice. That's what failed our last vendor's audit. We don't make that mistake twice. Jared tried again. Okay, can we walk through this one more? No, Priya said flatly. Then, to the Zoom host, please mute him. Click. Jared's face jerked slightly as the mute icon popped up next to his name. He reached for his mouse like he was going to override it. He couldn't. Then Martin moved, no words, just a slow turn of his MacBook screen toward Jared, angling it just enough for him to read the Slack message that had been quietly sent during the exchange. Everyone saw Jared's face change. His eyebrows twitched. His jaw slackened. The color drained like someone pulled the plug on his internal battery. I didn't need to see the message. I already knew. I'd seen Martin's typing bubble appear during the contradiction callout. I knew what was in the logs, I knew what was attached, but the finality of it landed in slow motion. Martin leaned back in his chair, still smiling, voice smooth. Thanks, everyone. We'll ensure full remediation is in place by end of week. Jared will be transitioning off this project immediately. Still muted, Jared shook his head slightly, eyes wide. No words, then Aaron nodded once. We're good to move forward, assuming Emily remains your compliance lead. My camera stayed off. My mic stayed red. I said nothing, just watched, because there was nothing left to say, no speech, no victory lap, just cold satisfaction delivered with the weight of evidence. They'd tried to mute me. Now, I was the only one left unmuted. Thanks for watching, you cubicle warriors. Hit that subscribe button. Unless you're my old boss, then you're on your own. Revenge of the coffee pot strikes again.